بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. نعم هذا استاذ مجلس. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah everybody. Inshallah you are keeping well. Inshallah everyone is healthy. Welcome to the tonight's monthly reflections podcast. We are very special and fortunate and honored to have a dear brother of mine joining us. So let me have him join right now. Habibi Nouri, if you could. And let me know if you got that request. Yeah, we had some technical issues yesterday, which was kind of fun. Alaikum salam to Zainab, which are kind of fun. And then they solved themselves, which was interesting. So let me add Nouri to it. How's everyone doing? How's everyone keeping, by the way? Hopefully everyone is doing well. I'm in a suit. I had a wedding today. That's why I'm dressed up. Also, when Nouri comes, let's tell him it was because of him. You know, let's make sure he feels thoroughly welcome to the podcast. Salam Ahsan as well. Good to see you. I saw you like 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago. It's good to see you again here. Alhamdulillah, I'm good, sister. Thank you so much for asking. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, your Shahr Ramadan is going well. And inshallah, everyone Shahr Ramadan can be accepted, inshallah, in our fast and our a'mal. Definitely. We pray. Where is he gone? What happened? Did I say something to scare him off? I don't know. Let me see. Nouri Sardar. Just came up from a brilliant session with our youth. MashaAllah, Ihsan. I hope that it went well and you appreciated and learned from it. This is the best time in the month to gain ilm, so inshallah it's beneficial for you. Bilal, assalamu alaikum. B Master, I think it's Bilal, that's your name, right? Sorry, my apologies, bro. I'm so reliant on you, and yes, I should know your name just for reference. And assalamu alaikum to the sister who's just joining. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid Taqwi, who's also just joined now as well. There we go. I think now we can have Nouri accept. Inshallah. Let's hope we can get going. Nouri, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, how you doing?
Good, bro. Can you hear and see me okay?
Yeah, I can see you fine. How's it going?
I dressed up for you, bro. Look at this, man. Like, I've been wanting to get you on for so long that I got.
Looking good, bro. MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. If you've seen my previous episodes, I look in different clothes, but today, like, I thought, I have to really. Okay, I can't do it. I went to a wedding. Okay, I went to a wedding. I can't.
You haven't got a turban yet.
No. Still can't lie. And a turban is also no guarantee you don't lie either. But I guess that's a different podcast.
That's fine, bro. It'll be a while before you start looking down on me, so we'll do it one last.
Never, bro. You're taller than me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How are you, bro? How's your family? How's everything?
Yeah, good. Alhamdulillah, good. We're still fasting here in the States, so we've got like 2 hours to go, I think. So it's been difficult to sync up with you guys because you're all energetic and stuff after iftar, right? You're relaxing, laughing about, and I'm just like be underwater. So it's hard to get to sync, but we'll enjoy it, inshallah.
Ya'tik al-afiyah. May Allah help you in the last few hours that you've got left, bro. Inshallah. What state are you in? Where are you?
I'm in Michigan.
Are you filming in Dearborn?
I'm living in Dearborn. I moved here. Well, Michigan.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the good ones go America and they just stay. It keeps happening around me. All my friends keep moving. I can't stop it happening.
Bro, all the with the electric prices going up and groceries going up and God knows what else going up in UK. I think it's at a certain point it's like I'm not paying this anymore. I'm done. I'm gone.
Do you miss London at all?
There's parts of it I miss definitely. But it's just enjoying the time while it lasts. Alhamdulillah. So it's been enjoyable so far, and we'll see how long it lasts. Like,
inshallah, I hope that you get what you need from this trip, from this time in America, and then you come back home. Anyway, that's my own personal dua.
Ya Allah,
inshallah. I saw you mentioned you're doing a lot of programs, hard to sync up. How's it been just for Ramadan? Like, are you doing online stuff? Are you going in person? Are you performing, reciting? How's it going for you at the moment?
So inshallah, I've got an event for Imam Hassan Islam in Chicago this weekend, and then I'm gonna go to Denver for some filming last week of Ramadan. So it's good. Last year I was traveling a lot. Last year I was traveling pretty much the whole Ramadan, so I was barely experiencing it. So it's probably been like 2 years for me since I last really experienced Shahr Ramadan.
Yeah.
So it's been nice, alhamdulillah, fasting every day. I've just been focusing on working, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Haven't really been reciting a lot. I recite for, there's a organization called the United Muslim Network, I think it's called. Um,
Okay.
in California, I did a live stream for them. But I've just been very focused on work, to be honest with you, and home and family. So I haven't been online much. So
Khair.
this is gonna be fun, inshallah.
Inshallah, that's good. Let me ask you a question. You know, when you write, um, I want to know, do you tend to be productive when it comes to in the busy moments, or is it in the gaps in between that you get busy? Because I made a mistake here. Last Muharram, I was reciting a lot more than I was expecting. And I thought to myself that, I can research things on the road. I can, ideas will come to me and I can, develop new ideas. But I was just so busy going from place to place. You don't have time to let that creative muscle burn. How does it work for you when it comes to writing and creating?
I think it's a bit of both, alhamdulillah. I think it's sometimes when you got downtime, you have a lot of time to think. But it's very difficult when you're very, very, very busy to write. And I get into a lot of reciters because they ask me sometimes for latmays and stuff, usually last minute. And I'm usually busy in the same period. And it's very difficult for me. It's not the fact that it's not difficult to write a poem. It takes half an hour or an hour, but it's like the mental capacity you need to write it is what's very difficult. If your mind's consumed with working so much, you've got deadlines to do, you're focusing on so much else. It's difficult for me anyway, to compartmentalize to an extent where I have that gap I can utilize to write, if that makes sense. So it's a bit of both. When I travel, it's much easier for me to write, especially when I'm flying or when I'm on the train, stuff like that.
Oh, really?
It's much easier for me to write. But it's been a while. Since I've been in that kind of state of mind where I feel something and I write a qasida. Nowadays, if I feel something and I want to share an emotion or express an emotion, I write a couplet. Because that's what Instagram has done to us. It's made us, rewire the way we share content to be like small bite-sized stuff, be it, what's it called, posts or reels or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is what has really, that's how I've been programmed to express myself for the past few months, even maybe a few years. But the old me would literally just be writing qasidas all the time. I think that's definitely something I want to get back to in the future, inshallah.
We've known each other a while, but I only got Instagram recently, so I've seen some of what you're talking about, those couplets and these things. Salam, by the way, I saw Tahir just join. Shout out to Tahir. Salam alaikum, dear bro.
I've been ignoring him the past few weeks. That's why he's trying to. It's like, hi, Nouri.
I've been doing something similar for someone else in the comments as well. Anyway,
Adil.
so here's all.
Adil was like, yes, for sure. I'm like, I'm here as well, bro. I'm just some bystander.
All right. Okay. Salam to Adil as well. Happy. Okay.
And Tahir.
And Tahir, inshallah. I've not met Tahir in a person, flesh, bro. I'd really love to meet you soon, bro. Inshallah. Good to get you on the podcast as well.
He's a wise man.
Yeah, Tahir is an inspiration to a lot of us. So I only recently saw your Insta stuff. I don't have Insta. I just got it for this podcast and this whole journey. I've seen you do qasida, do couplets here and there, do latmiya, and then do tracks. Which of these, mediums do you think you most naturally can fit the format to?
Oh, qasidas, 100%. It's really weird actually, because what I do with qasidas, it's not really like a style that is, and Tahir will know, listening right now, it's not really a style that is traditional to English poetry per se. Because what I'm doing essentially is looking at the kind of Arabic style qasidas and Urdu style qasidas and the way they write qasidas to wazn, to syllables, and with qafiyah, which is basically the rhyme at the end. It's a very specific style which is used for nohas and used for latmiyas, right? And for some reason, like when I was young, this is just how I decided to write poetry, and it's really the easiest thing for me to do. I mean, every so often, Ali Fadl will tell you this, that whenever he asks me for a poem, he can ask me for a poem last minute. Unfortunately, I wish he doesn't do this, but he does. He can ask for a poem last minute, and even till today, I'll just chant it out for him in like half an hour and send it over to him, because it comes very naturally to me for whatever reason. I think it's because the way, the poetic style of these poems and qasidas, and the way they express the love of the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, and the kind of metaphors they use, the kind of language that it's written in, it comes very naturally to me for whatever reason. But I think it doesn't mean it's my favorite way of creating. I think it's something that is, I think, the most pure. Then also you have couplets, short form poetry, which I think are very important. Then free flow poetry as well, which I'm really just exploring. But at the same time, I think you can lose yourself in the mechanics of it sometimes. Sometimes I just like to write and share and create. I think that's kind of like definitely the state of mind that I'm in now. Not so much just so focused on, how what the rules are of things and being a slave to the way things are. Because ultimately, poetry is art and it's expression of the self, right? It's an expression of what you're feeling inside and bringing that onto paper. And the rules and direction are kind of there to guide you in the right way. But I just love to express myself in ways that feel true and right to me. So I think that's and that obviously comes in all the different forms of poetry that you see.
Well, what you're describing is the most essential issue in art, which is the issue between form and substance. And I think every artist has their own relationship with the structure of their expression and their own creativity. No one was born to fit into a particular mold which existed before them. You know what I mean? That's why when people like you take risks and do other and new things, you have that license because you were not born just to do qasida. You're born to express yourself and find however you want to. I mention this because in all aspects of art, you have to draw on certain resources to create something. You mentioned yourself, you looked at Urdu and Arabic, for example, for qasida, and you see the way the structures are, and you get the wazn from there. Interestingly, this is how we create. We do ijad. We don't do ijad, sorry. We do khalqiyya. Ijad is when Allah creates out of nothing, whereas we create out of different resource and building blocks and substances.
Yeah, very true.
But some people think that there is a level of art where you are operating from pure inspiration, where the gap between the idea you have and the form that comes out is unique to you. And often we see that when people create their own forms, their own structures, which are completely unique towards them. Do you think as an artist, like at some point you reach that level, or people reach that level where you have a form of expression that's both unique to you in form and in theory and substance?
I don't know. I think it's different with everyone. I think, and there's just so many people out there creating. It's hard to have one set rule for everybody. I think for me, like especially when it comes to qasidas, and especially because I write in English, I think there's very it's hard to replicate, for someone else to replicate that style and be comfortable with it. It doesn't mean I'm better. It doesn't mean I'm good even. I'm just saying that because of the way I kind of grew up with poetry, I taught myself to write, like I said, qasidas, for example, lazmiyas in a certain style that has qafiyah, for example, rhyming at the end and stuff like that. And I've seen very few people do the exact same thing. People do a lot better in different ways, but this specific style is very specific to me. It's a very hard thing to do. Another brother who does it very well for Ali Fali writes is Haidar Qazzaz, a friend of mine as well. He does it very, very well. And I think
could you describe to the readers what that process is like so they understand what it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, for example, like a reciter will give me a tune, or for example, there'll be a latmiya that I like, that I listen to, and I'll just basically write to that tune. Or for example, there's a set rule with qasidas generally where you have, for example, different forms of poetry. In the kind of Iraqi world, you have, for example, Bahr al-Taweed and others like that. And they're essentially either, verses built into 11, 12 syllables per line, or paired at 7, 7, 8, 8, like that. And then the last word will rhyme. And essentially, what happens there is that you're essentially kind of squeezing your idea into that poem. And it can be very restrictive and very rigid. By the same
squeeze
time,
is the right word. It's a squeeze.
Squeeze is
right?
definitely, yeah, it's definitely the right word, because if you look at free flow kind of poetry and English poetry generally, spoken word poetry as well, rap, there's no limits to what you can do. It's consistently flowing, and there's no limits to where you can go. This kind of poetry, you're forced to sit in a skeleton, and I personally enjoy that. I love that because it gives me a way to navigate, and it really pushes me. My English, my use of English as well, because English is one of the worst languages in the world to do this with. Arabic is very easy because it's like a million words for one word. That's how Arabic is. That's why the Quran is in Arabic. But with English, it's very, very tough. So it's interesting. But again, it's not the only thing. I'm kind of limited to. I try to dabble in spoken word now and then, couplets as well. I've tried to break the rules that I write to. over the past few years in terms of Qafi and rhyming and stuff like that. But it's an enjoyable ride. And again, like there's a lot of amazing poets, mashallah, right, different reciters,
Yeah.
across the board. And alhamdulillah, it's been great to see this kind of movement grow over the past few years.
Something I've noticed in this movement of English poets coming out and reciters is the way that the existing traditions of dhikr of Ahl Bayt are used in English, right? So Arabic, we are seeing something of a theme of, you've described it. Farsi, we do see it too, especially more recently. The same Farsi melodies are quite appropriate for English speaking Latmiya sometimes, the way they are. But with Urdu, interestingly, I don't see it as much. I mean, we see English know-hows with Urdu tunes, but if you look at the art of Marsiya, for example, Mir Anis and Dabir and those Mir Anis, Josh, these historical forms, that form does not seem to translate at all. And I've actually noticed people tend to prefer the creativity or the freedom of a Farsi tune than what seems to be the rigidity of an Urdu tune in Latmiya, especially. Have you noticed this whenever you've tried it as well?
Yeah, it's because Farsi is a beautiful language, and the tunes of Farsi are beautiful to listen to, and they probably fit best with the English language as well because
Yeah,
it's the most kind of free flowing tune, and that's why I think a lot of reciters like Amar Nash is the one, for example, who uses a lot of Farsi tunes and does very very well. And there's a few reciters like him as well that do the same thing because when you put those English words to that tune, obviously ideally it should be to an English tune, right? We have this whole conversation about using English kind of standards when it comes to this stuff. We're kind of stuck in this world of using Urdu, Farsi, Arabic standards,
exactly.
because it's weird because it's also what our kind of ears are attuned to. As in terms of our cultural religious practice as Shia, we're attuned to Arabic. We're attuned to Urdu. We're attuned to Farsi. It's kind of how we are when it comes to melodies and wasa'ib. It's like the music of our people. Someone once described it to me, which is quite
Yeah,
a nice way to put it. But yeah, so I think that Farsi is definitely the most beautiful tune to write to. It sounds good with English, alhamdulillah. So for that reason, I think a lot of people have dabbled with it. Me personally, because I listen to a lot of Arabic, I listen to a lot of, Basim Karbala, old school Karbala reciters as well. I just write to those tunes. And I usually give it to the reciter and they can do what they want with it. Because,
mm,
again, like the structures are pretty similar. When it comes to Arabic and Urdu, with Farsi, it's very different. I've noticed a few people have asked me to write in the Farsi tunes. I find it tough sometimes
yeah,
because the tunes tend to go, well, it's like 11, 7, 6, 1, 11, 7, 6, 1, 5, 10. It bounces over. It's more like a song, basically. Very closer to English
yeah.
songwriting than it is to Latviya qasida writing.
First time I met you, you had these massive headphones on. You're just blasting Basim Karbala continuously to kind of let that approach kind of mix with your flesh. I remember. But interesting,
Yeah,
whenever I've sat with,
I've got a collection of like over 1,000 Basim Latvias. Pretty proud
I've
of
heard
that.
it's true. I've heard you say this. It's true, right? You've got like an old archive,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you just, yeah,
Yeah, I've got, and the thing is, well, it's kind of sad now because since he blew up on YouTube, everyone's kind of like, whoever's got into him on the bottom recently and had his affairs, they were like in that world of all this new stuff he was saying, but like the archive of his old stuff before he was on YouTube, you had to kind of like, when you recite somewhere, let's say in a Husseini, you have to like go to the Husseini website and download it and then kind of
mm,
like save it before it gets lost into existence, or go to shiavoice.com and pick
yeah,
out the ones that
exactly.
you want. Those ones are, are really gems as well. And he's got like a, 40 plus year collection of beautiful players to hear from.
Yeah. There are times that I've seen old videos and somewhere it's just a tape and I've never heard them again. And I remember recently I heard one somewhere and I was like, I know that from a long time ago and it's before he had his YouTube channel.
Yeah,
It's similar to, Allama Rashid Turabi in Urdu. He's a khatib and he's one of probably the most famous of all Urdu khatibs of all time, in truth, Allama Rashid Turabi. And he's only got two lectures in film form, only two
wow,
ever in video. One
wow.
on Yaqeen, and another if anyone can add if they know. So I know someone's following Shitarabi, and another one, and they have audios. But these two videos, everyone has memorized who likes
Mm.
Urdu, like Majalis, because there's only two of him. And I wonder if there was only one or two of Basim, like which ones we would use to
But what's
represent him.
interesting is that poets are very lucky because they've been writing for like what, like 1,000 years plus in terms of before Ahl Bayt alayhi salam.
Yeah.
reciters, because only recently we kind of, they have that tawfiq of everyone being able to hear them, in terms of the Iraqi community. I'm sure it's like Urdu parallel. With the Iraqi community, Hamza Sardar was one of the first ones that, they used to record his tapes, the first ones to hear his voice, like, and you hear him, he's got an amazing voice, but because there weren't, recording facilities before 100 years ago, God knows what the people before
Yeah, it's
sounded like,
true.
and feel like we're lost to
Definitely.
history because we can't hear their voices anymore. Whereas, now you recite, it can live for God knows how long, which is a really blessing, alhamdulillah.
So what you said now reminds me of why I chose this theme to talk about. Sayyid Hussein Nasr has this idea that all forms of art are expressions of Tawheed. And it comes from an idea that as insan, all we're doing is simply replicating what we have been created with, okay? And obviously one of them is that we've been created and we want to keep creating around us. And his idea is that anytime you see art in any way, it represents how you view Allah. He looks at Islamic art and the way that arches show unity and the cyclical nature of the ayat of Quran, and the minars go up into the sky like two hands in dua and all these kind of things. And what I find interesting is, when we do art in English, what are we saying about Allah and ourselves in the current way of creating? And like you mentioned, we're currently in that thing of we're replicating Iraqi and Urdu and Iranian standards. So it's hard to see what is our own generated idea. But at some point, we'll get to speak about Ahlul Bayt in a completely unique way in the English language. And that's exciting. It shows that, we can use the language for a very distinct purpose. Have you encountered that feeling of like we're doing something brand new here? And how far in between is that between simply replicating what's already been done in other languages?
Well, I think the first thing is that that's beautiful what you said. I think everything is the expression of Allah. Everything is, from the second you leave your door and look outside, there's so many signs of Allah's blessings and his essence manifesting, right? I think that's also very important. And I also think that to an extent, art itself, by anyone, Muslim and Kafir, is a representation of Allah. And that's why I love this world of art, because it kind of connects the most purest of people. You can be connected the most purest people to the most godless of people, and you can still kind of connect on that field. Which is why personally I love film so much, because film is it's an industry that Muslims are very scarcely in. You think about your favorite films and the ones that have moved you, and most likely there are very few Muslims actually involved in that production. But the expression of that art, and when you see it and you take it into you, for me personally, I've always found Allah in those forms of art. I've always found Allah in those stories that are being told to me, in the visuals that are being shown to me, the music that I'm hearing as well. So I think art is so beautiful in that sense, because be it whatever form of art, because you have the expression of the human soul, essentially, and the human soul is a reminder of Allah, right? So I think that's like the broader scope of this conversation. I think when it comes to again, we like to compartmentalize everything for whatever reason. I think when it comes to expressing for the Ahl Bayt specifically, it's something innate within us as Shia to express ourselves for Allah, for the Ahl Bayt. It's something in our culture, from the very first day when the Imam had his Khalifa stolen from him. The first thing the Shias did was vocalize his Caliphate. That's what they did from the very beginning. That's what Shia are. It's very interesting because it's kind of a sidetrack. We look at this kind of Sunni Shia coexistence narrative, which I think is very important generally. But it's interesting because, you have this mentality, unfortunately, where it's like, oh, you can be Shia and you can coexist in our space, but keep your beliefs kind of like hush hush. We're not here.
Exactly.
We don't hear too much about that. Don't be sectarian, basically. But as Shia, that is our identity that we are vocalizing. That not only is a Khalifa. That's what Shias. That's what Shias are. Shias are essentially the alternative narrative to history. I mean, I guess that's how they've been painted. So to us, it's the real narrative, right? But to history, it's the alternative narrative. We are saying, okay, this is how things should have happened. Ali should have been the Caliphate, even though he was the Imam to us. But I think that's what's so. The reason I bring that up is that because us as Shia and our heritage, we are so, it's so integral to us to express that belief, that deep spiritual belief that Imam alayhi salam is the path to God, that Ahl Bayt are the path to God. It's within our flesh and blood and bones, right? And how we do that differs with regards to how we are wired as human beings, if we're artistic or not. Whether we are attending programs to remember them, whether we are, just simply acting their lessons in our lives, reading about them, or expressing that belief in art. And I think, so we like to talk about how, okay, we're doing something new now because in English, but it's always going to be integral to us as the world becomes smaller. You know, as the idea of Dar al-Islam, Dar al-Kufar changes sporadically, as it has already done, and as we as Muslims now are living in this side of the world, as we have been doing for the past 50, 60 years, we will, however we are wired, whether we are artists or we are not artists, whether we speak English or we speak different languages, we will be expressing that belief in whatever way we can. If that makes sense. So I think it's not something new. It's something we've always done.
Yeah.
Expressing that love of the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. And it's just the way that we do things. It's not like I don't think it's a case of, oh, we're trying to do something new or trying to push the boundaries. It's just that we are expressing ourselves the way that is most authentic to us. Right. We as a British Shia Muslim, you know, living in the West, who speaks English as main language, that's what he's going to do. If that answers your question, makes sense.
Yeah, it's true. But as time changes, of course, we will find more authentic ways of communicating that than the whole majalis only, structures. Right? There'll be other forms. There'll be prose. There'll be, I don't know, written word. There'll be raps. There'll be all sorts of forms of expression that are just going to become more homogenous to the way that we are in the UK or in the West, for example.
What I'm saying is that if it's homogenous to you, you'll eventually use that to express your religious belief. It's as simple. I don't think it's as complicated as, okay, we have majlis and it starts at this time, it ends at that time, and then, you know, we have a TED talk and it needs to connect it. It's like, just relax, bro. Just express something you know how, and that's it. It's not. And we had this conversation last time when we spoke about the idea of the West. I think it was 2 years ago, and I think it's the same thing. It's like if you come to America, for example, you ask me how different America is to the UK. Michigan and Dearborn Smith is a bit of a bubble, but generally outside of this area, America is very much more Western than it is than the UK is. They're much more in touch with their Western. They're much more assimilated. If that makes sense. So as a result, the way they express their religion and their culture will differ to the way we do in the UK, right? So I think that's a good example of where Islam can go. I have this conversation a lot with my friends. My favorite topic of conversation recently, which is that we as Muslims right now, from what I understand, for the first time ever in history, are living in a quote-unquote kafir society, quote-unquote. Now, I believe that pretense is now the pretense that we should think about with every single conversation we have, be it religious, cultural, and it's not a bad thing, by the way. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying that is the context that we're living in, because when we open the books of history and we look at the way the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam kind of expressed belief and religion to us, and this is obviously just my own understanding and perspective, it was always through a paradigm of, okay, we're in an Islamic caliphate, and there is a kuffar world kind of outside of this world where not many Muslims live there, if that makes sense. And now we're in the middle of that kind of world where we're not run no longer by a caliphate, and we don't have an imam here to guide us. So we are in the middle of a quote-unquote, I would argue it's quite a godly society, but it's a quote-unquote kafir society, right? That's not run by the belief of Allah Muhammad Ali, or Allah Muhammad, if that makes sense. So as a result, what does that mean for our culture? What does that mean for the way we think? What does that mean for the way we dress? What does that mean for the way we produce art? What does that mean for the way we pray? What does that mean for the way we express our beliefs in religion? What does that mean for the way we interpret our books and our texts when it comes to religion? I think it's a very important. This is my favorite conversation. I think about this a lot. It's one of my favorite conversations. I think we need to think about it a lot as well. I'm not saying that means that halal and haram change. We have the hadith that, the halal and haram of Muhammad from the beginning to the end will say the same. But what I'm saying is, it's just interesting to have that paradigm in the back of my head sometimes, because sometimes you do something and you're like, oh, you can't do that. It's like, why? Why can't you do that? Because it's rude in Iraqi culture, or it's rude in Pakistan. That doesn't mean anything to me. I'm here in the West, so let's say. What does that mean? Yeah, I think that kind of paradigm of thinking is that pretense of understanding this. I think is very important to have. Personally, I believe this anyway.
I've been having the same conversation, but unfortunately in a very fiqh jurisprudential way, where we're discussing Dar al-Kufr and Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam. And there are so many arguments happening now for, whether or not migration becomes halal or haram, and staying, and the idea of ta'arab and going back from this country is halal or haram, and discussions about, how do fiqh rulings change based on society and urf and all of these things. And what I keep saying in answer to these things, basically people are saying,
where, because we're in a kafir society, we can no longer express our religion in an open and free way. So we have to consider returning or not migrating in the first place or changing our intention, all of that stuff.
But
And I always,
but are our homes, quote unquote homes, actually Muslim societies? That's the other question to ask.
but the argument for them is often that you have to, that's your responsibility then, to go back and work on those areas before
but why isn't this my responsibility if I was born and raised? And this is what's interesting, by the way, because
exactly.
because all of my friends and generally my community were like, oh, you know what, my dad came from Iraq, from Najaf, and or from Pakistan or whatever, and you know that's like homeland to me. And me, I'm third generation British, bro. Third generation British. I went to Pakistan when I was 10, but I'm a third generation British. My parents spoke English to me. My mom was born in the UK. My dad came when he was like 3 years old. So for me, I'm like, oh, it's it's amazing to have that heritage, but Pakistan is not for me, bro. Yeah, I'd love to go there and visit, but and there's a beautiful heritage there, but it's not my home. So when you say going back, like I can't go back. I'm here. I'm from the UK and I'm in America. If I want to go back somewhere, I'll go back to the UK. I don't want to go back there because the electric bills are too high. But right now, I'm in the West. Like, this is my home. So you're saying now about going back to Muslim land. For me, this is a Muslim land almost. This is where I learned religion. Do you understand? And this is why I feel like honestly, I'm very blessed to have this kind of like I don't want to say unique. There's a lot of people that are in my situation, especially in the UK. But I'm just very blessed to have this kind of like, but really kind of perspective, because in my community, everyone who's kind of came as first generation, second generation Muslims who have a place to go back to. They can go back to Najaf or to Baghdad or wherever, and they can walk around and still feel kind of out of place because they're from the UK, where they can that was like my granddad's house was there. My uncle had a bake shop over there. Like there's a bit of heritage there, if that makes sense. But for me, it's like no, I'm not from there almost. People get annoyed when I say this because it's like, oh, but you're British, you're Pakistani. But it's like, you can't come to me and tell me what my narrative of my life has been. You haven't been there every step of the way since I was born. Do you understand? So you can't look at me, oh, but no, but this is how it should be for you. I think this is a very important conversation to have. And reverts have this same kind of thing that when they join Islam, they become Pakistani or they become Arab or they become whatever. And it's very interesting, even when it comes to, for example, scholars, and this is something you'll know in Hawzawi circles. I was having this conversation here with a friend of mine, Sheikh, the other day, and it's like, when you look at akhlaq, when you look at, for example, the way you greet people and the way you speak to people, a lot of it is very Iraqi. A lot of it's very Iraqi, the way literally, that kind of culture, it's a very Iraqi culture. It's a very Iraqi culture. And it's interesting because that, when Shias specifically came to the greater southern Iraq after the Wahhabis attacked Karbala, and if you look at history in 1802, it was a very, very tribal. Obviously, you know how Iraq is, right? It's all tribes, right? So when they became Shia, they were Muslim originally, I think, but when they became Shia, they brought a lot of their kind of tribalistic beliefs with them, which is completely fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Even in the UK, like the way we speak is, we have our own culture, right? But it's like, okay, now you're in Dearborn, Michigan. Now you're in Los Angeles, California. Now you're in London, UK, New York. Okay, now are you really going to be an Iraqi from Najaf and have that kind of the way you speak going to a Knicks game in Met Stadium, in Madison Square Garden? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like it's a very weird juxtaposition of different identities that in my perspective is consistently clash. So it's like, okay, now I'm religious. Now I'm a religious person. Now I have to have these Iraqi formalities. Because if I don't have these Iraqi formalities, then I'm not considered a religious person. Do you understand? But it's like, I don't care about that. I do not care about that. All I care about, what does Islam say? What does Islam say? And what do I feel is right to me? That's the only thing I care about. And again, like, I'm not trying to put anyone down, but I'm just saying, like, for me, this is the way I think about things and kind of, look at religion. And this is also, for me personally, it works for me as well. Like when I'm traveling, I try to reflect a lot. I feel like I've got a lot of Sufi roots, Sufi heritage. So I feel like I travel all the time. I feel like I'm consistently traveling toward God. If that makes any sense. I can talk about this all day, honestly, but it's
well, I know
topic, but
I know we can't go all day, but I want to say that I do agree with you on the idea that these identity norms in the West happen by accident. They happen because of a random combination of different migration waves at different times, and they've created these things now which, like you mentioned, like they aren't the most perfect expression of Taweed or being a Muslim in every society. Like you mentioned yourself, if halal and haram is applicable in every society, we haven't yet figured out the language to describe halal and haram in English yet, to be honest. Our fiqh books, our translations, and sometimes bad translations, our discussions haven't morphed into the narrative they should be. And I think in this podcast series, I've invited a lot of guests on who can speak about that from a religious perspective, about how to change the narrative on halal and haram. Shout out to those guests coming on. I want to mention one last thing to you, and there's a lot of question. I'll come to that later. You've been describing like identity, right? And what the experience is like. And I know you have a very unique upbringing in general. So, but I think most people have that mixed culture thing. And even if they're revert, they have that experience you've mentioned. When I get told this thing about where do you belong and the West and the East and, you know, all of those discussions, I often answer by saying, you know, I can't leave here. We have a lot of work to do here. Like, we're here for a reason and a purpose, and we have a certain khidmah to do.
But even that,
we have
even bro, even the idea of leave, like that whole conversation of leave just really annoys me, because it's like, what do you mean? The number one, the world belongs to Allah, East and West. We read that in the Quran. So when you say leave, like, do you really think, you know, like this land doesn't belong to you? Like, you're born and raised in the UK, right, Abbas? Like,
yeah, I was born here and I raised majority of the time here. I lived in Dubai for 7 years.
Yeah, so it's like this idea of,
I'm from here, bro. I'm not from any other places my parents are. I'm from here. That's the truth of it.
But the thing is, like, this idea of leave and go back, like, we're consistently like looking for this some sort of heaven before heaven. It's like, oh, we can leave and go back and everything will be beautiful.
It's definitely an ideal.
And now suddenly we're in utopia. That doesn't make sense. It's a very silly mentality to have. Oh, we leave and go back to our home, and it's interesting. That's what nostalgia does to you, right? It's like, you know, you have a lot of folks, for example, who left. And again, I can speak to the Iraqi community because I grew up in the Iraqi community. We came to the UK, and it's like when they go back to Iraq now, they when they first go back, they had these dreams of what it was like growing up in Iraq. You know, the beautiful, you know, the memories that they have. The same way that I have, you know, for example, growing up in West London, you know, everything is romanticized in my mind the way life was. Or maybe I just had a great upbringing a few years, and it's like, you know, you always romanticize that period of your life. Now, if you go back there, it's a dump. If I go back there now, it's a dump. It's not the greatest place.
Someone said to me, do you realize your home is a ghetto? I'm like,
exactly.
I was describing South London, like, you know, South London is an actual ghetto. Why are you so proud of it?
Exactly.
And I was like, it's true.
No, I mean, again, I'm trying to belittle it. It's a beautiful community. There's ups and downs like everywhere else, right? But it's like in my head, it wasn't as real as that. It was romanticized. You know, it's like, even, for example, when you want to go, even me coming here, for example, I had to keep reminding myself, just because you're moving to America doesn't mean you're going to get here and your life's going to be beautiful. That's not how the world works. You're just carrying on. Do you understand? And I think that's really important. It's like this idea of we're going to go back to Muslim world. It's like you move, for example, to Mecca. If you're Shia, that's the greatest thing, I'm guessing. But if you know, as Muslim, move to Mecca, or for example, as a Shia, you move to Karbala, Najaf. Yeah, and when you're young, you romanticize this idea. Oh, you're going to get there and things are going to be beautiful. Life's going to be perfect. Nothing's going to go wrong. And it might be better for some people, and some people have great lives there. But really and truly, you know, life's going to come at you no matter where you are. You know, people are going to come at you. You get there. Everyone's Shia, which is beautiful. But you have good people, bad people. People are going to try to, you know,
of course,
misuse you and whatever, like they do anywhere else. People are people, right? Society is a society. And I think this idea of we try to romanticize, you know, so much this idea of a Muslim world. And I think we need to take a step back and kind of live with the idea that now we are in one world. It's not a Muslim world anymore. We are in one world and we are part of it as Muslims. I think this is a very important kind of way to think. This is, again, my own kind of opinions and perspective, but it honestly, it makes me reflect a lot, think a lot, because I look at you know, our community, not our community, but I look at, for example, again, like people who are deep in religion, and it's a beautiful thing to be deep in religion. You know, it's a beautiful thing to be studying religion. But sometimes I ask myself, but are you really living in the world?
Yeah,
and if you're not living in the world, then why are you studying religion for? To preach to whom? What's the point?
You know what happens? It happens if someone comes back for tabligh to a community they've not been for 5 or 10 years.
100%.
And what they've read is the issues are completely irrelevant to the community they're going to. And it's like, I've had talibah tell me that they're angry at the way that they were told to go to Hausa, because when they come back, they realize that they did not know how they're going to use their ilm back here. No one told them that.
Yeah,
and I'm always aware of this, you know.
You know, there's a guy here in America. He's a revert, and he's a sheikh, and I'm begging him to become marja. I'm begging him to become marja. Like, I'm serious, because this guy is white, revert, Like he's American as they come. He's got like a beautiful story history, and I'm telling you, listen, you've got to become Ayatollah. You've got to lead people here because we need a homegrown person to lead Islam who studies well and understands what Islam is here. And there's no point, with all due, like it's beautiful to people going to houses and coming back. It's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, like someone homegrown here who is really part of this society, to become Islamic scholar and lead people is very important. It's very important because we the idea of what Islam can be almost sometimes, or the idea of what we can be as Muslims changes, and that's the problem. We just kind of associate. Again, it goes back to that conversation we had 2 years ago about the West. Like whenever we think about Islam, we look east. Everything good is east, and it's like, oh, go back east, look back. And it's another thing. I think we have a problem we have as Shias. We look back. We love looking back. That's what we do as Shias, because we have this beautiful heritage of Ahl Bayt where we remember and commemorate. But sometimes we can get lost in that. We're always looking back. Lakhniyas were great 10 years ago. Jalis was great 20 years ago.
One day they're saying Nouri Sardar he's a good poet,
20 years ago. Honestly, we love looking back. Oh, you know what? 50 years ago, 100 years ago, that was when the best society was. But we can't stop looking back, start looking now. Look at ourselves now and look at, and love who we are now and be one with ourselves and be true to who we are now.
That's beautiful. There's one question, and then I think we'll come to it because I know you're busy. While I'm getting it out, you mentioned 2 years ago we had a discussion. Could you give a shout out to the Monthly Reflections podcast, to the guys listening to follow and listen? Because they might not know that you've come on before, and there might be a good time to tell them to follow while I read this.
Shout out Monthly Reflections podcast.
Thank you so much, bro. All right. Question is, can we adopt a new poetry style of spoken word without losing the Islamic appeal to the new generation, or in adapting the Western style? We're losing a little of the culture as well as the Islamic poetry and message. You get the question, right? So can we adopt a brand new style which does not lose the Islamic appeal, like the Islamic way of, I think it means the traditional Islamic ways of communicating to people. So a completely new way of speaking about Allah or about Ahlul Bayt. I can answer from one perspective and obviously you can answer from the other. I do think that because of the idea of Taweed being a completely universal notion, it is appropriate for every society and community to use their resources to find Allah. And that can be in any artistic form, which is why I've got Nouri on here, by the way. It could be film, it could be movie, it could be painting, it could be any artistic form. And I could discuss using ilm in the English language, but I think art is the best example of this. The artist who is completely putting their self as a thing of analysis is allowing themselves to connect to God through whatever resources they have. And sometimes it is words, and sometimes it's pictures and color, sometimes it's film. And I think the existence of religiosity and sacredness in film and TV is a great example of this. The movies that we have, and so is the Muslim artists and Christian Renaissance artists as well. How you can reach God using the art of your time. Nouri, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Quran was in I think it's the Quran that says the best, where it says, I'm not sure, maybe you correct, it's a Quran or Hadith, where it says, speak to people in the language preach to people in the language they understand, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I think it's a Hadith from the Holy Prophet.
Yeah, so speak to people in the language they understand.
But you don't say because you're fasting in it. So if it's wrong, then I'm done. So
I'm not intending to lie. Relax. This is another example of. So what's it called? So it's like speak to people in a way they understand, and so you just got to look at language every time. That's it. And I think the respect was, I'm not sure his brother or sister was asking, like, how do we not use the kind of traditional religious aspects of it. And I think the religiousness of it or the Islam of it will come in what you're speaking about, and what you're reciting about. I think it's really as simple as that. And again, obviously staying within the paradigms of what's kind of halal, if that makes sense. I think as long as you're serving God and staying in the paradigms of halal, we again, it's like we are. And the father will tell you this, like the first time he released that track was a higher, when he kind of sang for the first time. He sang for the first time, and people were like, "Oh, but that's not right." It's like, okay, why is it right? Why? Because technically, the way we recite in Iraqis is just the way Iraqis sing. The way you recite in Urdu, the way Pakistanis sing. So we can't recite in English if we're going to sing it the same way we're going to sing, right? So I think it's important to it's good to be cautious. I think it's a beautiful thing to be cautious. It's something I lack in my in the way I am. I'm never cautious. I should be more cautious. But it's I think it's as simple as that. Just look at the kind of what's being used, the way people are using poetry now in the society, spoken word, kind of freestyle performance poetry, and do the same thing, but about Muhammad Hussein and Ahl Bayt.
I agree. And I think when you go to the Sharia, you'll find there's a lot more flexibility than you'd be led to believe in forms of expression.
There's a lot more flexibility. 100%. And that's something we're not. And again, like this whole conversation I'm having, I just want to clarify that I believe that this is just a watered down culture versus religion conversation. Like, I'm not saying go against religion. I'm not saying religion is bad. I'm saying religion is there to be the best version of you can be. But the problem is we just make it difficult for ourselves, right? And we confuse religion with place. And we need to accept the fact that Allah has created this world for Him, and for us to worship, to worship, whether you're in wherever you are, Dorchester, God knows where, or the edges of Alaska or Antarctica. You can find a way to serve God and elevate that, and that doesn't mean you need to go back to the streets of Pakistan or Najaf and pray there instead.
إذ كانت الأرض لله يورثها من يشاء من عباده والعاقبة للمتقين. Allah, this earth belongs to God, and He lets all of His muttaqeen inherit it. And at some point, the end goal is for only for those who have taqwa.
100%.
So let's use this earth for a bit of tawheed, inshallah. Thank you so much, Nouri, my dear brother, for coming on. Allah, I appreciate it. We had a bit of a nice, enjoyable experience to get to this point, but I'm glad that we did. Alhamdulillah.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate having me.
Thanks to the listeners. Quick thing though, we do this every night. By the way, don't say it, but do you remember who you came on the podcast with last time you were on? Do you remember who it was, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that person's on tomorrow. And what I do is I ask the guest of the previous day to shout out the next speaker without saying the name, because we announce it at Fajr time. So Nouri, can you please encourage the listeners to listen tomorrow, knowing who the speaker is and why they should tune into tomorrow's evening podcast?
Tomorrow's Zain Awan's brother. So
come on. Nouri, I like it, man. All right. Zain's got 3 brothers, so I won't mention
the one that's the speaker.
All right, thank you for derailing the form of my podcast with your creative expression. Okay, take care, inshallah. Thanks for listening. See you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Follow the podcast to follow live. And Nouri, take care and pray for us, inshallah, when you open your fast, Habibi.
Take care, bro.
See you soon, inshallah. Ma'asalam. Take care. Bye everyone. Fi amanillah.